The realization that no one truly cares about you is the most violent and necessary awakening a human being can endure. Most people spend their entire lives running from this truth, building a fragile persona to please a collective that isn't even looking at them. We are biologically hardwired for tribal validation because, in our ancestral past, being ignored by the group meant death. But in the modern world, this instinct has become a cage. You are bleeding out your psychic energy trying to satisfy an audience that is too busy fighting its own internal wars to notice your existence. When you finally accept the total indifference of the world, you don't fall into despair. You rise into sovereignty. Carl Jung identified that what we call care or love from others is often merely projection. People do not love you for who you are. They love the version of you that fits into their narrative. They care about the emotional stability you provide, the status you reflect, or the useful role you play in their life. The moment you stop fulfilling that role, the care vanishes. This is a transactional nature of the human ego. To understand this is to kill the people-pleaser once and for all. You must realize that you have been living in a self-imposed prison where the bars are made of the opinions of people who will forget your name 48 hours after you are gone. This indifference is the ultimate gift because it grants you the permission to fail, to experiment, and to be cringy in pursuit of greatness. If no one truly cares, then you are the only one responsible for your standards, your boundaries, and your legacy. This is the birth of the sovereign man. You stop looking for clout as a metric for success and develop an internal code that is immune to the world's fluctuations. You move your center of gravity from the outside to the inside. When you stop needing the world to care, you stop leaking energy. You no longer walk into a room trying to read the energy to see if you are liked. You bring your own energy and become the sun around which others orbit. You become your own judge, jury, and king. This internal shift creates what is known as outcome independence. When you realize that the crowd's applause is as hollow as its silence, you stop performing. You realize that most social interactions are just ego grooming, people using one another to validate their own existence. By withdrawing from this game, you reclaim the massive amount of intelligence and focus you once spent managing your reputation. You begin to operate from a place of primal integrity. You do what is necessary because it is necessary, not because it will look good on a digital feed or a nod of approval from a peer group that is secretly drowning in its own mediocrity. The only true ally you have in this existence is the self. Most people are terrified of this because they don't trust themselves. They haven't built a character worth relying on. To make the self your ally, you must integrate your shadow. You must stop pretending to be good and start being whole. A man who is merely nice is often just too weak to be dangerous. A whole man knows exactly how much damage he is capable of, but he chooses to hold his sword in its sheath. This internal mastery creates a sense of self-security that no external praise can ever match. You build your empire not for the applause of the crowd, but for the sake of excellence itself. You must recognize that your ambition is a sacred fire that requires the oxygen of solitude. The world will try to douse that fire with the water of relatability. They want you to stay small, so they don't have to feel the sting of their own stagnation. When you realize they don't care about your potential, only your compliance, you gain the dark strength required to walk away. You embrace the nihilism of the abyss and transform it into the optimism of the creator. Since nothing matters to the universe, everything you choose to do matters infinitely to you. You are no longer a victim of fate, but its master. Ultimately, the goal of this journey is individuation. It is a process of becoming the person you were always meant to be, stripped of the layers of social conditioning and tribal expectations. In the silence of the world's indifference, you finally hear your own voice. You realize that you are the architect of your reality. You stop being a consumer of approval and start being a producer of meaning. The void that you once tried to fill with other people's attention is now filled with your own purpose. This is the sacred isolation of the high achiever. You learn to treat your own word as law. When you tell yourself you will rise at dawn, and you do, you're building a psychic credit with your own soul. Eventually, Your self-respect becomes so dense that it generates its own gravity. People will eventually be drawn to you not because you try to please them, but because you are the only thing in their world that is real. You stand alone, not because you are lonely, but because you are complete. The world may not care, but you do, and in the end, that is the only thing that has ever mattered. When a person relies on the care of others, their mood and their productivity are at the mercy of the environment. If the world is kind, they work. If the world is cold, they collapse. The sovereign man recognizes that his internal locus of control is his only true asset. He understands that the self is not a static object, but a process of constant refinement. He stops viewing loneliness as a deficit and starts viewing it as a power source. In the vacuum of others' attention, the true character is formed. Everything you seek, the success, the clarity, the status, will only feel stable if it is built on this foundation of self-sufficiency. If you build your house on the shifting sands of public opinion, it will fall the moment the wind changes. But if you build on the bedrock of your own integrated shadow and your own tested will, it becomes a fortress. You become the person who can endure the silence of the desert and still find the strength to build a temple. You become your own source of light in a universe that is fundamentally dark and indifferent. This state of being requires a radical departure from the social feedback loop. Most humans are like sensors, constantly pinging their environment for data on whether they are worthy. They tweet, they post, they look for a smile in the hallway, all just to confirm they still exist. But the sovereign man finds his existence in the unseen work. He understands that the most important conversations happen when he is alone in a room, debating with his own conscience. He recognizes that the collective is a monster that devours individual genius to feed its own hunger for conformity. To stay integrated, he must cultivate a ferocious privacy. He does not explain his moves. He simply moves. He does not ask for permission to be great. He assumes it. When you stop caring if they care, you unlock a level of cognitive freedom that is unavailable to the masses. Your mind is no longer cluttered with the ghosts of other people's expectations. You stop rehearsing arguments in your head to prove your worth to people who don't even like themselves. You realize that the energy you used to spend on reputation management can now be channeled into pure creation. You become a force of nature, indifferent to the weather, unbothered by the seasons. Focus entirely on the expansion of your own soul. This is the ultimate victory. To be so grounded in your own reality that the world's indifference doesn't feel like a cold wind, but like the quiet, perfect stillness of a kingdom you finally own.